Race 2 for the Technologies Bikesports Championship is about to get underway here at Silverstone. We've had a bit of rain overnight, got a greasy track, it should get interesting. Yesterday, Lee Torrey's got a lot of ground to make up. He's still leading Class A, but Joe Stables is really close in the main championship. He's still leading Class B. So with that, let's see how these guys get on. Here's Andy McEwen with Race 2.
Yeah, thanks Anthony. A very different track greets us this morning, but it's still the same order at the front of the grid. Joe Stables and Lee Torrey once more share the front row ahead of Phil Cooper and Chris Preen, Adrian Reynard and Richard Stables on the third row of the grid. So a few scores to be settled after yesterday's race with Joe Stables. Remember, he didn't get a great start in race 1. He lost the lead initially to Lee Torrey. Can Lee find a way through again this time? Also keep an eye on Phil Cooper, of course, who finished fourth on the road. He was second on the road going into the last couple of corners and then was excluded from the race anyway for a yellow flag infringement. So it was a bit of a roller coaster end to the race for Phil Cooper. He'll be wanting to redeem himself for that in race 2, which is now underway. The cars launch down towards Abbey Corner again, and look at that, up the inside goes Chris Preen. Chris Preen tried to take the race lead, gets all out of shape though as he tried to get past the front row men. I hope he got that one gathered together. Well, Chris said to Anthony after his race 1 podium that he likes the wet conditions, and look at this, he's making good on his promise because he briefly had his nose ahead of Lee Torrey there, but in the end he will settle back in line in 4th position behind Phil Cooper, and they are all behind Joe Stables, who leads the way on board with Chris Preen there as they go down in towards the link defensive line taken by Lee Torrey. Phil Cooper therefore tries to get the switchback and the run up the hanger straight for the first time of asking. We're on board with Chris Preen as we go through, and well, actually the through also now will go Richard Stables. So Richard Stables gains a position. Now I'm saying that they're all behind Joe Stables. I can't actually see Joe up the road, so Joe Stables presumably has actually dropped down the order slightly. Now whereabouts he is exactly, I'm not too sure. We'll have to pick that up in a moment or two. Oh no, there he is. He was hiding in front of the leading 2. I couldn't quite see him from that onboard. So Joe Stables is the leader. Phil Cooper is second. Third place is Lee Torrey. 4th place is Richard Stables. And Chris Preen, after a demon start, has dropped down into 5th position. So not really delivering quite on the early race promise. You can see him weaving side to side there, further back, trying to get some warmth into the tyres as they make their way back down in towards the start of the second lap. Lee Torrey down into 3rd position. Remember, he finished yesterday's race down in 4th position, so he lost ground in race 1. He doesn't really want to be losing ground in race 2, but that would appear to be what's happening here in the early stages. Phil Cooper, though, making hay whilst the sun fails to shine here at Silverstone. He's not only pulling away from Lee Torrey, but I'd say he's closing in slightly here on the race leader Joe Stables as they make their way down a dry-ish hanger straight. The racing line appears to be bone dry here this morning. It's overnight rain that has dampened the racetrack, but the cars that have been some qualifying sessions this morning, 1 or 2 races as well, so the racing line has dried out. It's still a bit chilly though, and I think a few drivers struggling with that. We saw the race leader Joe Stables there locking up, more locking up going on further back, side by side racing going on further back as well though. This looks like a pretty interesting tussle. That's the number 15 machine of Robert Rees going up the inside and taking a position away by the looks of it from Ashley Hicklin, I think that was, in the number 16, who tries to come back and up the inside. There isn't room though, and Ashley has to back out of it through the second apex at club. We see that quite a lot there, that you can get up the inside in the middle of club corner, but it's a double apex corner. They're both ahead, for the time being at least, of Bill Henderson, who now dives up the inside of Hicklin and takes 1 position back at Abbey. Now Bill Henderson qualified ahead of both of these drivers, so he's had a bit of an iffy start. Side by side again here, that's the number 9 machine going up the inside and gaining a position. That was Richard Gilman coming from 17th on the grid. He's already up into the top 10 there. That was Richard Hardy that he was finding a way past on that occasion into Village. It's a bit of a jumbled up grid that we've had here for this second race. The grid based upon the second fastest lap times from qualifying, but it clearly was a bit of an unpredictable session because a few drivers were having issues in qualifying and qualified further back than maybe they should have done. Their race pace is now starting to bring them back towards the front, on board with Sean Peters, who had that spin in race 1 down at Vale. Lost a few laps whilst he was being recovered, but was able to finish the race, albeit 4 laps down. Here's Bill Henderson and Ashley Hicklin continuing their battle. Bill Henderson qualified 9th, Hicklin qualified 13th, and although Henderson's found a way past him, it looks as though Hicklin is pretty keen to try and get the place back again as they streak across the start-finish line once more. They're starting to lose, though, a bit of contact with Robert Rees, who's pulling away and sort of latching onto the next group of cars slightly. Back towards the front of the field now, though, and we're on board with Chris Preen in 4th position in the RSX as he makes his way along the ever-drying hanger straight again, up in front of us. We can see the leaders, but we're not quite in touch with them. Looks as though the lead gap, though, is going up. The fight for second, continuing to rage on, though, and that's where possibly most of our attention is going to be directed in this race. Here is that fight for second place as Lee Torrey tries to find a way back ahead of Phil Cooper. They're actually not a million miles behind Joe Stables. So Joe Stables, who's looking to try and continue this dominant run that he's been on in the early part of the season, with a win yesterday as well. Of course, Phil Cooper, second overall, also in the same class as Joe Stables, so that takes on extra significance with this battle. And then you've got the Lee Torrey car there in third position, just trying to make up for that iffy start that he had. One or two spots of rain on the camera lens as well there. There is definitely rain in the air. There is a bit of drizzle forecast today, so there is the potential that we could have a slightly damper circuit for the second half of the race than we had in the first half. Back along the hanger straight they go. Chris Breen in the background there, really running out wide in his pursuit of Richard Stables. At the head of the field, it is Joe Stables. Joe Stables is Richard's son, who is performing so well this year, and as we said, was leading the Class B Championship coming into this weekend. But Lee Torrey, who was leading Class A, had 3 more points within his class than Joe Stables did, so that will be the target for Joe, to try and outscore Lee. At the moment, though, they're both leading their classes, so they're both on for the same amount of points. In race 1, though, Lee Torrey was only second in class, so Joe Stables was able to take a couple of points back out of Lee. Back through Abbey they go again. Lee Torrey trying to get past Phil Cooper, but in a way, from a points position, it would be better for Lee if Phil Cooper were able to go up and challenge Joe Stables, because there's nothing that Lee himself can do about Joe's class position. Phil Cooper can, because they are in the same class. Back out of the link they go again, along the hanger straight, and down towards Stowe Corner, where it looks as though Lee Torrey's a bit closer this time. Now, this is where Lee lost the race lead to Joe Stables in yesterday's race early on. Can he repeat the same move on Phil Cooper? He tries it, but Phil Cooper, with the lighter PR6, is able to carry a bit more speed into the turn, and so holds on to the position. What about under braking down in towards Vale? Lee Torrey goes to the inside line. That was a really brave move, because that was the damper side of the road, but he made it stick. So Lee Torrey moves into second position now. And as long as he doesn't run too wide through club, he should be able to hang on to it down the pit straight and maybe be able to go after the race leader Joe Stables. So far this weekend, he hasn't quite had the pace of Joe, but they've not been far away. Their pace in qualifying, their outright pace in qualifying, was only 2/10 apart in Joe's favour in both sessions, in fact, sorry, in both elements of the session, if you like. Both grids, their fastest and their second fastest lap times, they were only separated by a couple of tenths. So Lee Torrey, if you can get with Joe Stables, 2/10 is nothing really. If you've got a bit of a slipstream, that's more than enough to negate a 2/10 of a second deficit in pace, but he's lost a bit of time there getting past the red PR6 of Phil Cooper. And Phil Cooper now starting to drop back a bit again now in third position. So Phil Cooper on the podium at the moment. He is still second in class. Look at all this going on further back. This is a great battle. Around the outside there goes the number 10 car. Now that's the Spire that we haven't mentioned yet. The only Spire on the grid. That's David Palmer, but he loses out again now on the run down towards Vale. And I think that was a Duncan Keith possibly. No, 48, excuse me, Andy Chittenden, who had gone through there. So Andy Chittenden, who was also on time yesterday, so too was David Palmer. Neither of those two finished the race yesterday. They're both still running now, though, and enjoying some really, really good battling going on further back. Up the inside goes the number 55 car. That's Chris Bell making a place on Robert Rees. There's a bit more rain on the camera lens now at Abbey as well, so that's possibly contributing to the frantic nature of this midfield battle, because they're all sort of arriving at each corner and having to guess how much grip they're going to have. If the grip is starting to diminish, then that's going to really liven up the racing even more, if it needed it, because this is a very, very close battle here between about half a dozen or so cars, if not more. Look at them. David Palmer's got himself up ahead of another couple of the Radicals now, but that Spire just doesn't seem to quite have the legs, although in a straight line actually it seems to be holding its own quite well, in fact pulling away from some of the SR3s behind him. Back through Stowe goes David Rees there, sorry, Robert Rees, excuse me, the number 15 car. And they drop down what is quite a significant decline there in towards the braking zone at Vale, where there's a move being attempted here by the 33 car of Richard Hardy, trying to find a way ahead of the number 5, that was, wasn't it, of Bruce Crawley. Bruce Crawley hangs on. In fact, pulls a big gap there over the 33 machine of Richard Hardy, which I'm not convinced is running quite as healthily as it should be, because he qualified better than this. He qualified 14th for this race, so he should be a bit further up the order, really. Now, there is Richard Stables. He is still ahead of Chris Preen, which is interesting. Richard Stables, Class A car, Chris Preen, the Class B car. Richard Stables, who took a couple of points away from Lee Torrey in the Class A Championship in race 1 as well, but not looking likely to do the same in this one, because Richard Stables is up the road somewhat. Sorry, Lee Torrey, excuse me, is up the road somewhat. Down into the right-hander they go. Chris Preen there attacking. There is Lee Torrey. Now look at the way that Lee Torrey is catching Joe Stables. So I said that in the bone dry conditions in qualifying and indeed race 1, it was definitely Joe Stables that had the pace advantage, but this time around Lee Torrey is closing in. Then you've got Phil Cooper in 3rd on his own there, the red car. Then the black and silver is Richard Stables. Behind him, the black, red and white is Chris Preen. And then the next car in line is a lap down. That's Duncan Keith in the number 49 Radical PR6. The lead battle starting to ever intensify now, so Lee Torrey might just have something here for Joe Stables. Back with Chris Preen though, running in 5th position. Lots of traffic now starting to come into play, and that could possibly present even Chris Preen with his best opportunity to try and attack the cars in front. But look, it's all getting very busy indeed, and look at that, Richard Stables goes to the inside and tries to get past 2 back markers in 1, which he does, then runs a bit wide through Abbey though. It's all getting very hectic there, as they're both, of course, trying to chase down Phil Cooper in 3rd place. These are the top 2 though, and Lee Torrey is now with the race leader Joe Stables. Now, Lee Torrey had that spin yesterday in race 1 when he was running in a podium position. That was whilst trying to negotiate a back marker. This time around though, he's got his eyes very much set on the race leader in front of him. Down the hang straight they go, continuing to pull away despite the fact they're getting closer together and maybe starting to hold each other up slightly now. They're getting ever further away from the 3rd place car of Phil Cooper, who flashes through shot. Then it's Richard Stables, then it's Chris Preen, so the top 5 still in the same order for the time being. But there are definitely a couple of these positions that are subject to possible changes, as Joe Stables flirting with danger there, running out over the curbs, which will still be a bit damp after the overnight rain, and the painted curbs are like ice when they get wet, and with these powerful rear-wheel drive sports cars, very easy indeed to lose the rear under acceleration. Into the braking zone they go then. There is Joe Stables leading the way now. There's more traffic in front. Now the traffic was Lee Torrey's undoing yesterday. What about in race 2? Can he maybe use it to his advantage to try and challenge Joe Stables, the race leader? We'll wait and see. Chris Preen here in 5th place, still with Richard Stables, but not really able to mount too much pressure. He's applying the pressure, but he's not been able, it's not really told just yet, although that was a mistake there. Richard Stables ran wide out of the link, and so Chris Preen now gets in the slipstream. Look at that, Richard Stables pulling away. It's a slightly smaller car, of course, the PR6, so it does cut through the air a bit more efficiently, and it's lighter as well, so acceleration is always a bonus for the PR6s. It is a very, very good little car, is the Radical PR6, and that's why it's proven so popular over the years in Radical Championships and Bikesports Championships like this one. Back out of Club Corner go the leading 2 though, and Joe Stables, well, has he got the measure of Lee Torrey, or is Lee Torrey just biding his time? If he is biding his time, he needs to get a move on, because we're into the final 3rd of the race now. They've negotiated that group of back markers cleanly, and Joe Stables appears to have come out of it on the other side a little bit better off. He's pulled an extra car length or so over his nearest pursuer. These 2 both leading their class though, still remember. Lee Torrey Class A, Joe Stables Class B. So this is now just for the honour of taking the overall race victory here on the Silverstone International Circuit. Now Lee Torrey gets himself in the slipstream down the Hanger Straight. He'll be closing in slightly at this point, but is he going to be able to snatch the lead? Well, I don't think he's quite close enough this time. They have just negotiated a couple of back markers, you can see them there. This is the 3rd, 4th and 5th place group though. They're maybe getting a bit close together. I'd say Richard Stables has gained on this lap on Phil Cooper in front. And of course, again, those 2 also running in different classes. 2 cars in the leading 5 that are battling for class position are Phil Cooper and Chris Preen, fighting for position within Class B. So back down across the start-finish line we go again. Joe Stables' gap is shrunk again slightly that time around. And there goes Phil Cooper. Phil Cooper making his way through. Also in Class B, of course. And as he negotiates, I think that was Mark Grayson, wasn't it? The number 30 car going one lap down. Leaders are up at the link again, and there's a car that's spun. Oh, it's Palmer, isn't it? That's David Palmer in the number 10 car that's spun. In fact, 2 cars involved in that up at Vale. And that was all part of that very energetic battle we were watching about 5 minutes ago or so, and it appears to have all gone pear-shaped up at the link that time around. Palmer's rejoining. The other car, though, was not rejoining. I have a feeling that that was Bruce Crawley, maybe, who we saw those two battling away earlier on. I wonder whether maybe it's Bruce who has not come through, it must be said this time around. I wonder whether it's Bruce that's pulled off there up at Vale. Right, up at the link, excuse me. The leaders are down at Vale, and Lee Torrey is getting ever closer here to Joe Stables, but where will the move be made, if at all? Because all of the usual overtaking opportunities into Village, down at Stowe, they're not really working here for Lee Torrey. The place where he appears to be the closest to Joe Stables, the race leader, is down at Vale, so this could really boil down to the last couple of corners of the race. As I suggest, will this fight for third, fourth and fifth, because these 3 cars are getting ever closer together now. Phil Cooper is definitely being caught by Richard Stables, and Richard is kind of bringing Chris Preen with him. As they duck down into Village again, hit the apex, nicely done there for Chris Preen. Really desperately wants to try and get onto terms with Phil Cooper if at all possible. As far as the class points are concerned, but I just think he's running out of time. He's first of all got to deal with Richard Stables, who he is quicker than out of the link, but then we saw from the onboard a few laps ago that Richard is just able to pull away down the straight, so there's nothing really Chris Preen can do about that. Conditions maybe not quite wet enough for Chris. Chris really would have been hoping for a slightly heavier rain shower this morning that maybe could have played into his hands. He says he's good in the wet. That car is good in the wet as well, because in the wet conditions it's not all about power and straight line speed. You've got to have a car that handles well, and of course the SR3 platform is a slightly wider wheelbase than the PR6, so it makes it a little bit more stable in the wet. The longer and wider the wheelbase is, then the more stability you have in slippery conditions. You can see from that head-on shot there the difference between the 2 cars. But in the dry, the wider SR3 is slightly less aerodynamic, and so that's what's giving Richard Stables this advantage at the moment. It's not quite sufficient, though, for Richard to be able to close in on the Class B PR6 in front of him of Phil Cooper. Yellow flags out still down at the link, presumably because of the incident a lap or so ago. David Palmer and Bruce Crawley. There's another back marker, it would appear, up ahead as well for this battle for third place to negotiate, which they will do cleanly. Down into the braking zone at Stowe. Turn their way out of Stowe. Back down towards Vale, and more with Chris Preen here as he tries to chase down Richard Stables in front of him. There is Phil Cooper, the red car still there, in third position. So they work their way back along the start-finish line into the first corner, into the closing stages of the race now as well. These races are 18 minutes plus 1 lap, so we should get hopefully about 18 laps in, and Lee Torrey is starting to get a bit frustrated here, you sense. He feels that he's got the speed to find a way past Joe Stables, but so far hasn't been able to prove that by actually finding a way past him. So down towards Stowe they go, and this, as I've said, is the part of the circuit where Lee Torrey seems strong. He goes to the inside line, he tries to take the race lead away, but he's just a bit too far back, so Joe Stables hangs on, and that will now scupper any chance, surely, that Lee Torrey had of attacking down towards Vale, because going in on a tight line into Stowe has compromised his exit speed. Although he's close to Stables under braking into the next left-hander, he's not close enough to actually find a way ahead. Stables gets sideways, Torrey's out on the curbs. They're both pushing onto the ragged edge now as they try to each get the race victory. We go on to the final lap of the race now, though, and this is going to be a real grandstand finish, because I think that Lee Torrey can probably get back to Joe Stables here, but is he going to be able to make the move stick? In towards Village they go. Stables, the all-black car, the black car with the red flashes in second is Lee Torrey, and Lee Torrey in car number 78, the SR3 RSX, is actually dropping back slightly on this lap, so maybe not quite going to be able to do anything. Although look at this is the last thing that Joe Stables wanted to see, an absolute train of back markers in front of him that he will have to negotiate. The first of those back markers is Tony Barwell in the number 44 car, who definitely got in the way of Joe Stables there, and that's really hurt Joe's run through Stowe. So 2 corners to go, and it's a real grandstand finish. Lee Torrey is right there with him, and he goes up the inside line. Lee Torrey for the race lead, goes through, and loses it. Lee Torrey spins, he collects Joe Stables. They're both pointing the wrong way round. Now can they get the car fired back up again? Joe Stables does a quick 3-point turn through the gravel trap. Here come the rest. Phil Cooper could inherit the race victory here. Down they go. They're both bouncing across the grass, but miraculously Joe Stables is going to survive that dramatic final corner to win the second race of the weekend. What a finish that was. Second place goes to Phil Cooper. Richard Stables is third. Chris Preen is fourth. And limping across the line with broken rear suspension is Lee Torrey. Well, that race came alive in the final couple of laps, and it is Joe Stables who, in the most dramatic fashion, comes out of it a race winner. Phil Cooper is second. Richard Stables third. Then Chris Preen and Lee Torrey in fifth. Then it's Doug Carter, Joe Locke, Richard Gilman, Bill Henderson and Chris Bell who round out the top 10. David Palmer there, a non-finisher. So too was Bruce Crawley, and Charles Adrian, also a non-finisher in that race. Adrian Reynard never started, but what a race that was between Joe Stables and Lee Torrey, and it's Joe Stables who comes out on top.
Joe, one of your toughest victories of the year so far.
Definitely.
Lee was getting inches and inches closer every lap, and then he spun it in the last corner. Firstly, congratulations for getting over the line.
Thank you. Yeah, he was he's getting me each lap and had me worried. Each corner, checking my mirrors, getting closer, you know, trying my best to stay in front of him. And then he went on the inside of me when I was overtaking a back marker in the complex, and he locked his wheels up and went into the side of me. So I had to get it going off that and just managed to stay in front of Phil.
Yeah, plenty of rain overnight as well, so a bit greasy on the track.
Yeah, it's definitely very greasy. There's only a dry line forming. The rest of the track was just pure damp.
And does that put you top of the overall standings?
I think it does, yeah. I think it was from last race, actually. But I now should be well in the lead.
Fantastic. Well, for now, go and enjoy. Well done.
Thank you.
Phil, you're there to pick up the pieces. Congratulations, second place.
Yeah, it was a tough race. First couple of corners, dropped down to fourth. Got past Chris, got past Lee, and was holding the gap to Joe, but then Lee come past me and they just walked away. Caught a back marker in the wrong place. Richard closed on me massively, so that last couple of laps I was just trying to hold what I had. Came round to the last couple of corners and Joe and Lee were in the gravel, so I thought it was like Christmas. But yeah, Lee didn't quite get going as good as Joe, and we got past him, so a good second. We changed the car a lot from Rockingham, and it seems to be, handling wise, seems to be a lot better.
Great performance, well done.
Thank you.
Richard, turned into a very successful weekend for you, third place, well done.
Yeah, that's a good result. I was impressed I got third. I thought I was down in fourth or fifth, but yeah.
Then took us through the race, it's very greasy out there. Were you struggling at all?
If you got offline, it was slippy, and I'm not brave enough to overtake on the greasy side of the circuit. I got alongside Phil on the last lap, but I wasn't brave enough to hold it, so I came in third, so that's good enough.
One more race today, looking forward to it?
Not really, but yeah, we'll have a go, see if we can do the same again.
Oh, well done.
Thank you.